God is setting you up for a divine comeback. Have you ever noticed how life has a peculiar way of pulling you backward, just when you thought you were on the edge of something great? As if the very ground beneath your feet decides to disappear, not out of malice, but mystery. And in that fall you question everything, your purpose, your path, even your God. But consider this. Perhaps the fall is not a failure. Perhaps it is the divine inhale before the exhale of your destiny. For just as night precedes the dawn, and silence precedes the symphony, there is a sacred rhythm to your life that even your suffering is dancing to. You are not forgotten. You are being prepared. What feels like an ending is, in truth, the orchestration of a comeback so divine only heaven could script it. It is a curious thing, isn't it, how we humans interpret the fall. The collapse, the moment everything we held dear slips through our fingers like water we can't seem to grasp. We call it failure, we call it loss, we call it misfortune. And yet, if you examine the great myths, the sacred texts, the lives of those who have transcended limitation, you will find something strikingly consistent. Before every rise, there is a fall. Before every light, there is darkness. Before the soul awakens, it is first broken. Now, what if this breaking is not the end, but the beginning? What if God, in his infinite wisdom, is not destroying you, but disarming you? What if the collapse is not punishment, but purification? You see, we spend much of our lives trying to construct identities, build empires of security and certainty, form plans, chase ambitions. And when life comes crashing down, when the job is lost, the relationship ends, the illness comes, the bank account empties, or the dream crumbles, we believe we have lost everything. But this, perhaps, is when we are closest to truth. Because in that moment, the illusion is stripped away, and what is left is the raw, beating heart of who you truly are. When a seed falls to the ground, it doesn't die in vain. It dies to be transformed. It splits, it breaks open, but this breaking is what allows life to emerge. So, too, your fall is not the end. It is the beginning of something unseen. You are not being buried. But of course the ego does not like this. The ego wants linearity, progress, achievement. It wants to control outcomes, to manage God, to measure success in numbers and status. Yet God is not a businessman, nor is he a human strategist. He is the eternal artist of the soul, and he paints with shadows as much as with light. Think about it. If you were never brought low, how could you understand humility? If you were never wounded, how could you become a healer? If you never lost your way, how would you know the joy of being found? The fall humbles us. It reminds us that we are not in charge, and in that humility we learn to surrender, not as a sign of weakness, but as a sign of wisdom. We come to recognize that there are forces at work beyond our comprehension, forces that are not cruel, but calculated with a cosmic precision, forces that lead us not to destruction, but to destiny. So do not rush to curse your collapse. Do not write your story as over just because the page is torn. The author of your life is not finished yet. He is simply allowing the ink to dry before he turns the next chapter. You may look around and see rubble, ash, silence. But God sees the foundation of something holy. He sees the clearing of space for something you could not have imagined while you were busy trying to hold everything together. You called it failure, but heaven calls it reformation. And this reformation is essential, because there are versions of you that cannot enter your future. There are mentalities, attachments, beliefs, and emotional patterns that must collapse before you can be rebuilt into your calling. What has fallen away was never meant to follow you. It served its time, it played its part, and now it is returning to the soil. Let it. Because the comeback does not begin when things get better. It begins the moment you decide to trust again, even without proof. It begins when you stop cursing the past and start embracing the mystery. It begins not with a loud trumpet of victory, but with a quiet whisper. Even this will be used. When Christ carried the cross, it was the lowest of moments, mocked, beaten, seemingly defeated, and yet it was the very road to resurrection. The crucifixion came before the comeback. It always does. You cannot rise unless you first descend. This is the paradox of spiritual truth, that what seems like loss is often gain in disguise. So here you are. Perhaps you feel emptied out. Perhaps life has thrown you into a season where nothing seems to make sense. You wonder why you were brought so far only to be dropped so low. But remember this. In every myth, in every sacred journey, the hero must pass through the valley before reaching the mountain. The soul must descend into shadow before it can radiate light. What you are walking through now is not death. It is sacred transition. It is the stripping away of false strength so that real strength can be born. It is the undoing of everything artificial so that what is eternal can stand. Do not resist it. Flow with it. Let the fall teach you. Let it show you where you were clinging too tightly, believing too narrowly, trusting too little. Let it guide you to the deep waters of surrender, where you no longer beg God for clarity, but you trust Him in the chaos. Because in the end, this was never about what you lost. It was always about what you were becoming. And in the divine narrative, nothing is wasted. Not one tear, not one heartbreak, not one silent night. All of it is part of the orchestration. All of it is the setup. God is not finished with you. He is setting you up, not for a repeat of what was, but for a resurrection of what could be. The fall is not your failure. It is the fingerprint of a loving Creator positioning you for your divine comeback. So stand still, breathe deep, and remember, seeds break before they grow, stars collapse before they shine, and souls fall before they soar. There is a rhythm to life that most people miss because they are too caught up in the illusion of permanence. We want things to be steady, stable, always moving upward in a straight line, but the truth, the deeper truth, is that life moves like music. It dances, it flows, it ebbs and swells like the tides of the ocean. And if you listen carefully, you'll begin to hear it, not in words, but in movement and silence, in the pauses, in the breath between the notes. God does not move in straight lines. He moves in rhythms, cycles, waves, like seasons returning to the earth, like the moon calling the ocean home only to send it back again. And in that rhythm there is divine intelligence, not chaos, not randomness, but order. An order too complex and beautiful to be easily grasped by the mind, but known deeply in the soul. And this is where we find the truth about your story. You are not off track. You are not forgotten. You have simply been called into the lower part of the rhythm, the part we call waiting, wilderness, quietness, or even suffering. But this is not the end. It is not a punishment. It is the undercurrent before the rise. It is the inhale before the shout. You are in the rhythm of return. When things fall apart, when your plans dissolve and nothing makes sense, the human impulse is to panic. We ask, what did I do wrong? But consider the tree. It loses its leaves every autumn, not because it has sinned, not because it has failed, but because it is obeying the deeper rhythm of life. The fall is not death, it is preparation for new life. The winter is not the absence of God, it is the silence where His voice matures in you. So often, when we suffer or fall, we think we are being left behind. We see people rise around us, friends finding success, strangers celebrating joy, and we wonder why we were bypassed. But God is not comparing timelines. He is composing symphonies. Each soul, each life, each journey has its own tempo. You are not late. You are not early. You are being timed with eternity. The comeback you hope for is not an interruption of God's plan. It is part of it. It is embedded into the design. Even nature understands this. The tide goes out so it can return with power. The sun disappears only to rise again. The soil sits still in winter so it can bloom in spring. So what if your current stillness, your current confusion, your current pause is the exact breath before the music swells? We were never promised an uninterrupted path, but we were promised that all things work together for good. And sometimes, to work together, things must first fall apart. The pieces must be scattered before they can be placed into a new design. If you're feeling scattered, you're not lost. You're being rearranged. Let go of the idea that success is constant motion. Sometimes standing still is the most powerful thing you can do, because in the stillness you stop striving and start trusting. You stop clinging and start allowing. You stop forcing and start flowing. It is here, in this rhythm, that God works most intimately. He works in the waiting. He breathes in the quiet. He rebuilds in the dark. You may not see it, but underneath your confusion, beneath your weariness, He is forming new strength, new wisdom, new vision. And just as the sun does not rush its rising, neither should you rush your return. The truth is, your comeback is already underway, not in loud announcements or public victories, but in the small internal revolutions, the quiet decisions to keep believing, the tears you wiped away in silence, the prayers whispered when no one was watching. These are the notes of your return, the rhythm of your resurrection. You see, God is not merely interested in fixing your circumstances. He is interested in transforming you. He is not a magician performing tricks. He is a master composer writing the music of your soul. And every fall, every silence, every wilderness is a necessary note in the song. If you skip the quiet parts, the music loses its power. What a tragedy it would be to resent the part of your journey that is making you into who you were born to be. What a waste it would be to curse the very rhythm that is preparing you to carry glory. The irony, of course, is that we often want the mountaintop without the valley, but the depth of your valley determines the height of your peak. You cannot have one without the other. This is the wisdom hidden in the rhythm. You are not stuck. You are swinging back, just like a pendulum, just like a wave, just like breath. It must go out before it comes in. It must lower before it rises. And the further it falls, the stronger the return. Don't resist this rhythm. Don't fight the seasons. Learn from them. Let them work in you what no comfort ever could. You are not being delayed. You are being deepened. You are not being ignored. You are being tuned. And when the moment comes when the wave begins to rise again, you will not be who you were. You will be more clear, more grounded, more radiant. This is how God prepares us, not in constant acceleration, but in divine rhythm, in divine timing. And when the time is right, you will move again, not by force, but by flow, not by striving, but by grace. So take heart. The rhythm you're in is not random. The return is already written. You don't have to understand the music to trust the composer. All you must do is stay in tune, because the next note may be your comeback. There comes a time in every soul's journey when the lights go dim, not in the world necessarily, but within. That quiet hour when the applause stops, the doors close, and the road ahead becomes a path you can't quite see anymore. People call it many things: confusion, depression, burnout, doubt. But those who have walked this path before, those who have known the mystery beneath the silence, will tell you the truth. You are not being abandoned. You are being hidden. God hides those he loves, not to forsake them, but to form them. Not to punish, but to prepare. Just as a seed is buried in the dark earth before it can sprout, just as gold is hidden in fire before it is shaped, so too the soul must be withdrawn from the noise of the world in order to be tuned to the frequency of heaven. And in this space, this wilderness, this hiddenness, something sacred begins to unfold. But most people don't recognize it. The ego hates being hidden. It wants to be seen, validated, admired. It craves the platform, the spotlight, the results. So when God removes the spotlight, the ego screams, "You're losing!" But the soul whispers, to be hidden is not to be forgotten. It is to be placed in a sacred cocoon where transformation happens invisibly. Think of the caterpillar. It does not become a butterfly by climbing higher, but by dissolving entirely in the dark. The cocoon does not look like progress. It looks like isolation. Yet inside, destiny is rewriting the code of its very being. So too, you are not being left behind. You are being rewritten. God does not reveal what is not yet ready, and you in this very moment are being made ready. There are layers within you that must be stripped away. There are fears that must surface. There are false identities that must die. And so he draws you away, not in anger, but in intimacy, not to exile you, but to expose you to yourself. Because before he reveals you to the world, he must first reveal you to you. This process feels like silence, like abandonment, like obscurity. But it is none of those things. It is sacred. Because when the world stops affirming you, you begin to hear the only affirmation that truly matters, the voice of God within. The whisper that says, "Even here, I see you. Even here, I am with you." In the scriptures, Moses spent 40 years in the desert. David was hidden in caves before he wore a crown. Jesus himself disappeared into the wilderness before stepping into the fullness of his ministry. What is this pattern that repeats itself through every sacred life? It is the wilderness, the hiding, the divine pause. And it is not optional, it is essential, because in the hiding your heart is reconditioned, your motives are purified, your distractions fall away, you learn to lean not on your talents or titles, but on grace alone. You learn to sit with yourself and discover that even stripped of everything, you are still loved, still worthy, still chosen. This is why the hiding is a gift. It reveals what applause could never teach you, that your identity is not tied to performance, that your worth is not attached to productivity, that even when no one sees you, God sees, and in His eyes you are never invisible. But oh, how painful this can be. The silence feels deafening at times, the waiting unbearable. The temptation to prove yourself creeps in like a snake in the grass. You think, maybe if I just do more, God will bring me back into the light. But the light isn't delayed because you're doing too little. It's delayed because what is coming is too great for you to carry unprepared. God hides what is holy. He shields it, covers it, protects it. And you, dear soul, are more sacred than you know. That's why it feels so quiet. That's why it seems nothing is happening. Because what's happening is beneath the surface, in dimensions you can't yet perceive. The greatest works of art are not rushed. The most beautiful melodies are not forced. And you, who are being shaped by the hands of the infinite, are not being overlooked. You are being sculpted. Every delay is intentional. Every silence is filled with strategy. Every hidden season is a divine incubation. And so, while the world may wonder where you've gone, while you question why the breakthrough hasn't come, heaven is at work, quietly, faithfully, preparing a stage that you won't have to fight for, because it will be aligned with your transformation. And when the time comes, it won't be a return to who you were. It will be the emergence of who you truly are. There is a deep peace that comes when you accept the hiding, when you stop resisting it, when you realize you're not behind, you're underground. And what grows underground grows deep. The roots are expanding, the foundation is being laid. And when your life blooms again, it won't be fragile, it won't be shallow, it will be unshakable. So rest in the hiddenness, let it do its holy work. Let the silence cleanse you, let the solitude awaken you. This season is not your exile, it is your womb. And soon, what has been forming in secret will be revealed in power, not because you forced it, but because God timed it. Trust this hiding. It is not a delay. It is not a mistake. It is the whisper of a loving Creator saying, "You are not ready to be seen yet, but oh, when you are, the world will never be the same." We live in a world that reveres noise, constant movement, endless updates, the pulse of activity humming at every hour. We've been taught that silence is suspicious, that stillness is stagnation, that quiet means something is wrong. And so when life slows down and God seems silent, we assume we've been forsaken. But what if the silence is not absence? What if it is orchestration? What if the stillness is not rejection, but the setup of something sacred that cannot be rushed? You must understand that God is not frantic. He is not in a hurry. He is not like us, grasping, anxious, calculating by deadlines. He is still. He is timeless. He works not with clocks, but with alignment. And in his wisdom he sometimes draws the curtain closed, not to end the play, but to change the scene. When God is silent, he is not doing nothing. He is moving pieces that you cannot see. He is speaking in dimensions that do not use words. He is preparing the hearts of people, softening the ground, aligning the circumstances for a divine comeback, so intricate that if he revealed it too soon, you wouldn't believe it. So instead he withdraws. not to withhold from you, but to protect what he's preparing. We often cry out, "Where are you, God?" We wonder why our prayers echo without reply, why the doors remain shut, why the path seems unclear. But if you look closer, if you listen beneath the silence, you may begin to sense it, not as noise, but as presence, the kind of presence that doesn't need to speak to be real, the kind of presence that is doing more in the silence than words ever could. In music, the rests are just as important as the notes. Without silence, there is no beauty in sound. So too in your life, the pauses are not accidental. They are part of the score. They are there to give depth, to create tension, to carve space for what's coming next. And make no mistake, something is coming. The setup is always invisible before it is undeniable, like roots spreading underground, like bones forming in the womb, like stars being born in galaxies far beyond the reach of your eyes. Just because you don't see the setup doesn't mean it isn't happening. In fact, the more quiet it becomes, the more precise God is being. This is the paradox. The deeper the silence, the greater the setup. When God falls silent, he is often closest. When he hides his hand, he is often doing his finest work. But this requires trust, not the kind of trust that clings to proof, but the kind of trust that rests in presence, that says, even when I see nothing, I believe you are working. Even when I hear nothing, I know you are near. You are not forgotten. You are not disqualified. You are being positioned. You are being drawn into the sacred stillness, where God is not only setting things around you in motion, but setting you in alignment with your destiny. What you interpret as delay is divine choreography. What you call silence is sacred timing. And just as an arrow must be pulled backward before it launches forward, so too must you be drawn inward, downward, into silence, into reflection, into solitude, before your life is released into its next season. But be careful, this is the moment when many people quit. They walk away, not because God failed, but because the silence scared them. They mistook quietness for absence. They mistook the wait for waste. They could not see the setup, so they abandoned the process. Do not be like them. Do not confuse stillness for stagnation. You are in the hands of a master planner, a God who sees not only your current pain, but your eternal purpose, a God who knows that what is built too quickly often collapses, but what is built in silence stands the test of time. Think of the stories that matter, the heroes who rise, the dreams that live, the victories that shake the earth. None of them happened overnight. Each was born in silence, in private battles, in unseen preparation, in divine setups that seemed like nothing until they became everything. Joseph sat in a prison for years, forgotten by those he helped. Esther was hidden in a palace before she became a queen. Even Jesus spent 30 years in obscurity before revealing his identity. What is this pattern if not evidence that hiddenness is not a sign of insignificance, but a signal of preparation? So when you feel the silence stretch long, when the waiting room of life seems endless, when your prayers seem to dissolve into the air, remember this: you are in the setup. You are in the quiet hour, where the canvas is blank, but the brush is moving. The stage is still, but the script is being rewritten. And when the time is right, when the alignment is perfect, when your heart is ready, when the path has cleared, you will step into what you were always meant for, and it will not be a forced arrival, but a natural emergence. You will not have to prove yourself because the fruit will speak for you. You will not have to fight your way in because the door will open at the touch of your hand. But until then, embrace the silence. Let it deepen you. Let it teach you. Let it prepare you. Because what God is setting up in the silence will one day make so much sense that you'll look back and say, that's why it had to happen like that. In the divine setup, nothing is wasted, no moment, no pause, no unanswered prayer. It is all being used, all being aligned, all being woven together in a tapestry that only God can see from the other side. And when it is revealed, it will not just be a comeback. It will be a revelation, a divine unveiling of everything you were created to become. There is a truth, subtle yet powerful, that echoes through the silence of all sacred journeys. Identity is not discovered in comfort but forged in the fire, not in the moments when everything is going your way, but in the seasons when everything you thought you were begins to fall apart. It is in these moments when you are stripped of your certainty, your titles, your sense of control, that something deeper begins to emerge, something truer, something eternal. Most people resist the fire, naturally so. It burns, it consumes, it exposes. We want to be whole without being broken, wise without being wounded, strong without being stretched. But there is no such path. The soul in its truest becoming must pass through the fire. It must die to the image it once clung to, so that it can awaken to the identity it was always meant to carry. And so, when your life seems to be unraveling, when everything familiar begins to dissolve, do not assume you are losing yourself. You are losing the version of you that cannot go where God is calling you. The fire comes not to destroy you, but to refine you, not to erase you, but to reveal you. Gold, in its natural state, is not beautiful. It is hidden in rock, mixed with impurity, and it is only when exposed to intense heat that the dross rises and is removed. Only in the fire does the gold emerge in purity. The same is true of your soul. You are not being punished. You are being purified. You may have walked through betrayal, loss, confusion, loneliness so deep it echoes inside your chest. You may have wondered if the fire would ever end, but what you didn't see, what you couldn't yet understand, is that every moment of burning was preparing you. Every tear shed in silence, every night spent praying with no reply, every door that slammed in your face, each one was hammering your spirit into strength. Each one was carving away what was temporary, so that what is eternal could be seen. Because what you are meant to carry cannot rest on shaky foundations, you were not called to live a shallow life of external success. You were called to depth, to clarity, to truth. And the deeper your calling, the more intense your preparation. Fire does not come to those who are being dismissed. It comes to those who are being defined. So many people confuse pain with punishment. They believe that God's love is proven through comfort and ease. But love that is eternal will not settle for who you pretend to be. It will press in. It will tear down your masks. It will challenge the lies you believed about yourself. And it will do so not to harm you, but to heal you. Who am I without the labels, the roles, the expectations, or even in the approval of others? Who am I when everything else is stripped away? The roles, the expectation. And this is where the fire does its greatest work. It strips you not to leave you empty, but to show you what cannot be taken. It reveals what is unshakable. It introduces you to the you that existed before the world told you who you should be, the you that God imagined before time began. That's why the fire hurts, because it is melting everything false. It is exposing every place you've hidden, behind identity props, behind performance, behind pride. But it's also the place where you meet grace, the kind of grace that doesn't require you to earn anything, the kind of grace that whispers, even here, you are loved. Your identity is not in the role you play. It is not in your performance or your achievements. It is in your essence. And that essence is indestructible. Because it was not made by man, it was breathed by God. And though fire may touch it, it cannot consume it. It only reveals it. When you walk through fire, you begin to see others differently too. You stop judging their pain. You stop envying their highlights, because you know what it costs to become real. You know what it takes to rise out of ashes. You know the sacredness of hidden battles, and you learn to honor the journeys that are still unfolding. This is how God prepares you to lead, not by giving you power, but by giving you empathy. Not by giving you influence, but by giving you compassion. Because those who have walked through fire walk differently. They don't speak from theory, they speak from survival. They carry a weight that cannot be faked, a humility, a presence, a power that only the fire can teach. So do not resent what you've walked through. Do not despise the pain that woke you up. It did not come to crush you. It came to crown you. You are not a victim of your fire. You are the result of it. Stronger, wiser, deeper. And though the world may not understand how you survived, you will know. You will know that it was grace. You will know that it was God. And you will carry that knowing into every room you enter. This is the irony of it all. That the very thing you thought would break you has become the foundation of your strength. That your greatest identity was not found in who you were before the fire, but in who you became because of it. That what burned away wasn't you. It was what you never needed to begin with. So let the fire do its work. Let it burn off the old, the false, the unnecessary, because what is left when the smoke clears will not be broken. It will be holy. It will be whole. It will be you. There's something quietly painful about a closed door. You knock, you wait, you hope, and nothing. The opportunity that once looked promising vanishes, the connection fades, the dream dissolves. And in that moment, when what you expected to happen doesn't, the mind begins to spin a story of rejection, a story of inadequacy, a story that says, you are not good enough. You've been disqualified. But what if the story isn't true? What if rejection is not rejection at all? What if it is repositioning? We tend to think in straight lines. We imagine success as a singular path with predictable steps. But life, real life, sacred life, moves more like a river. It bends, it curves, it carves through rock, it changes direction, not because it is lost, but because it is alive. And so too are you. You are not meant to be fixed in place. You are meant to evolve, to shift, to grow into the shape of what you're becoming. And sometimes that growth can only happen when God closes a door and turns you toward another.
To be repositioned is to be loved deeply, intimately, because it means the Creator sees more in you than you see in yourself. It means He is not content with your comfort. He is committed to your calling. And sometimes the only way to move you into that calling is to remove the things you thought you couldn't live without, not to harm you, but to help you see that your destiny is not attached to what you lost. The truth is, you've not been rejected, you've been rerouted. You've not been cast off, you've been redirected with care. And though the path now looks unfamiliar and the terrain feels uncertain, you are not lost. You are being led. We confuse comfort with clarity. We assume that the right path will always feel easy, always feel affirming, always be accompanied by signs and confirmations. But some of the most powerful divine shifts happen in the dark, where you must walk by faith, not by sight, where God removes the scaffolding you've leaned on so that you finally learn how to walk by trust. I think of a parent teaching their child to ride a bicycle. At some point, the training wheels must come off. At some point, the parent must let go, not because they've stopped loving the child, but because they know the child is ready to balance on their own. And in that wobbly, uncertain moment, it may feel like abandonment, but it is actually belief. God repositions you because he believes in what he placed inside you. And he knows that if you stay in the wrong environment too long, you'll shrink, you'll settle, you'll begin to accept less than what he created you for. So he intervenes, he disrupts, he allows the job to fall through, the relationship to dissolve, the plan to collapse, not because he's cruel, but because he's clearing space. Sometimes the door didn't close because you failed. Sometimes it closed because your soul outgrew the room. You've changed, you've healed, you've awakened. And now the vibration of your calling no longer fits in the confines of where you were. That's not failure, that's expansion. But the mind doesn't like uncertainty. It craves reason, definition, explanation. So when you're in the space between the old and the new, when you've let go of what was, but haven't yet seen what's coming, the mind panics. It wants to label the unknown as failure. It wants to interpret the waiting as being forgotten. But the soul knows better. The soul knows that every shift is sacred, even when it hurts. You are being guided even when the way seems unclear. You are being loved even when the silence feels loud. You are being moved, not away from purpose, but deeper into it. And the more you release the need to understand everything, the more you allow divine wisdom to move through your life like wind, shaping, shifting, directing you toward what has always been yours. So if a door has closed, bless it. If a chapter has ended, grieve it, but let it go. What left your life was never meant to define your worth. It was simply a step, not the summit. And if you resist the redirection, you'll miss the beauty of where it's leading. You were not created to stay stagnant. You are here to unfold, to rise, to become. And sometimes becoming requires unbecoming, letting go of the old roles, loosening your grip on the familiar, trusting that what feels like loss is often the very thing clearing space for the life your soul came here to live. You are not late. You are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be to receive the next revelation. And though it may not look like progress on the outside, inwardly, there is a great repositioning happening. Your spirit is aligning. Your heart is recalibrating. Your mind is expanding beyond the limitations you once believed were true. When you look back, you'll see not as a season of confusion, but as the turning point. You'll understand that what felt like the end was really the bend in the river that brought you to the place you now belong. The rejection you feared was actually redirection with divine precision. So breathe, trust the detour, honor the discomfort. And remember, just because the route changed doesn't mean the destination has. What is meant for you is still meant for you. The path is simply being cleared of everything that cannot come with you. God is not undoing your life, He's unfolding it with care, with timing, with a wisdom far beyond your own. And as you keep walking, even with trembling steps, you will see this is not the end. It is the repositioning that makes the comeback not only possible, but inevitable. There is a strange irony woven into the fabric of the divine, the kind of irony that lets a man be crucified before he is glorified, the kind that places you in last place just before declaring you the winner, the kind that causes people to laugh at you, dismiss you, count you out, only to witness your name whispered in reverence when the dust settles. This irony, as uncomfortable as it feels, is no mistake. It is sacred, it is intentional, and it is how God chooses to reveal his glory through the most unexpected vessels. You see, we've been conditioned to believe that success is loud, that validation is public, that greatness is visible. But God often moves in the opposite direction. He is the one who lets you fall just before you rise. He will allow circumstances to look like failure so that when the breakthrough comes, there will be no confusion about who made it happen. Because the story isn't just about you, it's about him through you. It is one thing to win when everyone believes in you. It's another to win when no one saw it coming. And that's what God specializes in, divine reversals. Just when the critics close the book on your life, God writes a new chapter in invisible ink. Just when you think the story has ended in loss, a quiet turning of the page reveals that the plot was only beginning to unfold. And those who once scoffed become silent, not because you demanded their respect, but because the outcome spoke for itself. This is the divine irony that in order to rise in truth, you must sometimes appear to fall in the eyes of the world. God will let you be misunderstood, overlooked, rejected, because he is not trying to build your ego. He is trying to awaken your spirit. He is not interested in temporary applause. He is crafting eternal weight. And weight does not come from shallow praise. It comes from deep process. It is humbling to be passed over. It stings to be judged by those who do not know your heart. And yet, these very experiences are tools in the hands of the divine. Tools that chip away at the need to be liked, the desire to prove, the fear of being unseen. Tools that shape your interior life in a way that no public platform ever could. God will sometimes let people think you've failed. He will allow you to walk through seasons of silence, obscurity, even defeat, not because he delights in your pain, but because he knows that real power is born in surrender, that you must first learn to be content with being misunderstood so that when you are finally revealed, you are not addicted to approval. The ones God uses deeply, he hides thoroughly. He silences the noise so that your ears are tuned to his voice alone. And in that silence, you are not losing. You are learning. You are being trained. You are being set apart. Because what God is preparing in you cannot be built on shaky foundations. It cannot depend on external validation. It must be rooted in something far stronger, faith, character. So if life has led you to a place where others don't see you the way you see yourself, where your intentions are misread, your vision is doubted, your worth is questioned, take heart. You are in good company. Every great story has this chapter. Every chosen one walks through this irony. It is not punishment, it is prophecy. You are being refined for something more, not just for success, but for significance. Not just to be seen, but to be solid. And solidness cannot come through comfort. It must be earned through endurance, through trusting God, even when his plan makes no earthly sense. And that's the point. The divine setup always defies logic. That's why it works. God will let you lose battles to win wars. He will let you be last so he can make you first. He will let others walk ahead of you so that your path can be free of imitation. And when it's time, when the moment is aligned, you will rise. Not with arrogance, but with quiet authority. The kind that only comes from walking through the fire and not being burned. You may not get the applause, you may not get the credit, but you will get something far more valuable: truth, clarity, anointing, the kind of impact that doesn't need to shout, the kind of influence that lingers in the room after you leave, because you didn't come to impress, you came to transform. You didn't come to win their praise, you came to fulfill your purpose. And that purpose doesn't need a crowd to be valid. It doesn't need a platform to be powerful. It only needs obedience, faithfulness, a willingness to keep going even when it looks like you're losing, because God has a habit of exalting the humble, of honoring the faithful, of reversing the outcome at the last possible moment so that all may know it was him. So don't fear the irony, embrace it. Don't curse the silence. It is the sanctuary where your roots are growing deep. Don't run from the rejection. It is the redirection that leads you to your divine appointment. And when it comes, and it will come, it will be bigger than you imagined, not because you fought for it, but because you surrendered to it. This is the mystery, the wonder, the poetry of a life aligned with God. It will not always make sense. It will not always look victorious, but it will be full of meaning. And at just the right time, when you least expect it, the irony will unfold into a revelation, and all the pieces, the pain, the pauses, will fall into place. And you will smile not because you won, but because you waited. And the waiting revealed the wisdom of the one who never forgot your name. There comes a moment, quiet and almost imperceptible, when the tide turns. You don't always see it. There are no trumpets, no grand declarations, but something within you shifts, something subtle yet unshakable. It's the moment when the weight of everything you've been through begins to feel lighter. Not because life has suddenly changed, but because you have. You've been prepared, molded, refined. And though you may not have known it, everything was leading here. This is not just a breakthrough, it's your divine comeback. But let us be clear, a comeback is not about revenge. It is not about proving others wrong. It is not about rising from the ashes simply to say, I told you so. No, a divine comeback is far deeper than that. It is a return, not to who you used to be, but to who you were always meant to be. It is a homecoming of the soul, a reunion between destiny and identity. It is when what was hidden is revealed, and what was broken becomes the very foundation of your strength. The world loves a comeback story, but what the world rarely sees is what comes before it. The sleepless nights, the unanswered prayers, the long, barren seasons where you wondered if anything would ever change, the silence that made you question if God had gone quiet for good. But what if all of that, the pain, the pause, the pruning, was not a detour, but preparation? You see, God doesn't waste anything. Every heartbreak, every closed door, every delay, he uses it all. Like a master composer writing a symphony, he weaves every note, every rest, every tension into the music of your life. And sometimes the most powerful parts of the song are played in the quiet. The notes you don't hear are the ones that shape the beauty of the ones you do. That's what the wilderness is. That's what the waiting is. Silent preparation for a sound that's coming, a sound only you were designed to release. Your divine comeback begins not when the world sees your victory, but when you decide to stop living as a victim. It begins the moment you stop rehearsing your wounds and start reclaiming your worth. When you choose to rise, not in spite of the pain, but because of it. because you finally understood that what hurt you did not have the power to refine you. It only had the power to refine you. People may look at you and wonder how you survived. They may try to trace your strength back to a method, a strategy, a formula, but they will miss the truth because your comeback wasn't man-made. It wasn't self-engineered. It was divine. It was grace meeting grit, faith meeting fire. It was what happens when heaven breathes on the ashes of your life and calls forth something new. And you beautiful soul, you responded. You didn't quit. You didn't let the darkness have the final word. You may have cried, you may have crawled, you may have questioned everything, but you stayed, you remained. And that staying, that decision to keep walking, even when the road vanished beneath your feet, that was the holy act. That was faith in its purest form. So now, when the tide turns, don't be surprised if it looks nothing like what you imagined. Divine comebacks rarely follow human scripts. You may not return to the same places. You may not be welcomed by the same people, but you will not be the same person. You will carry something more valuable than success: substance, depth. And this is what the world needs. Not more noise, not more superficial triumphs, but real people who have walked through fire and found God in the flames. People who are not afraid to admit they've been broken, but who also know they've been made whole. People who do not speak from theory, but from transformation. Your divine comeback isn't just about you. It's about the lives that will be changed because of it. It's about the hearts that will find hope because you didn't give up. It's about the souls who will hear your story and remember their own strength. You are a living testimony, a walking miracle, not because everything went right, but because you kept going when everything went wrong. So let the comeback unfold. Let it rise slowly, like dawn breaking over a weary horizon. Don't rush it. Don't force it. Just trust it. You don't need to chase what's already yours. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You are not here to perform. You are here to be, to embody what has been forged in the silence, to live what you've learned in the fire, to carry the fragrance of grace everywhere you go. And the beautiful part, the people who counted you out will see it, not because you sought their attention, but because your light will be undeniable. You will shine, not with ego, but with essence. Not because you demanded a spotlight, but because you became the light. This is your divine comeback, not loud, not flashy, but eternal, a return to center, a rising of the soul, a blooming that no winter could stop. And though you may have doubted, though you may have felt forgotten, you were never forsaken. You were simply being positioned, purified, prepared. Now the moment has come, not for you to chase, but to receive, to step into the life that was always waiting on the other side of your surrender. The comeback has begun, and it is not the old you returning, it is the real you finally revealed. There is something mysterious and beautiful about the way life closes in before it opens wide, like the moment just before the storm breaks or the silence just before a symphony begins. It is in the tension, the pressing, the pressure that the soul begins to sense something is near, something not born of human striving, but of divine intention. It's the feeling that after all the waiting, all the wandering, all the hidden seasons, your time is not only coming, it is arriving. But here's the paradox. This arrival isn't about achieving something external. It isn't about finally getting the promotion or the relationship or the audience you thought you needed. No, this arrival is internal. It's the deep exhale of the spirit that says, I am no longer who I was. It is the moment you realize the process was never about changing the world around you. It was about transforming the world within you. And now that the transformation has occurred, the external will begin to mirror the internal. You begin to feel it not in sudden breakthroughs, but in subtle confirmations, the way your heart doesn't panic where it once would, the way your soul no longer chases what once consumed you. You begin to speak with more clarity, walk with more purpose, breathe with more peace. And this is the evidence not of striving, but of shifting. Something has aligned. You've surrendered the illusion of control, and in doing so, discovered the power of alignment. God does not rush what he is building deeply. The foundation has taken time, painfully so, but it had to, because what he's about to place on that foundation would have crushed the old you. It would have overwhelmed the parts of you that hadn't yet healed. It would have exposed fractures in your identity that hadn't yet been made whole. But now you are ready in a way that cannot be faked. Now you are steady, not because of perfection, but because of surrender. You see, this is the real preparation, not polishing your image or perfecting your performance, but learning to trust, to let go, to stand still in the fire and let it burn away everything that does not serve your calling. That is the strength that sustains a divine comeback. Not outward momentum, but inward stillness. And in that stillness, you begin to hear things more clearly. The voice within, the whisper of God, the gentle promptings that no longer require signs and wonders to be believed, because you have grown sensitive to truth itself. You no longer ask, is this it? Every time something moves, you already know, because your spirit, shaped through the long silence, now discerns the sacred without needing validation. And this is when it happens, not in a flash of lightning, but in the soft unfolding of life aligning around you. Conversations shift. People begin to see you differently. Doors open, not because you forced them, but because you are now in resonance with them. You have become the frequency of what you once chased. But it is not ego that speaks now. It is reverence. It is the deep knowing that none of this is your doing alone. That grace was always the architect. That mercy sustained you when you didn't know how to hold yourself together. That angels walked with you even when your prayers felt unanswered. So you rise, yes, but not with arrogance, with awe. You become quiet in the presence of your own arrival, not because you doubt it, but because you understand its cost. You know what it took to be here. You know the tears, the betrayals, the nights of despair. You know the battles no one saw. And so you do not flaunt your victory, you carry it. Like a sacred offering, like a torch passed down through generations of souls who endured before you. You hold it carefully. You let it light the way for others. Because now you realize this was never just about you. Your comeback is a signal, a reminder to the weary, the broken, the waiting, that resurrection is real, that no season lasts forever, that even buried dreams can breathe again. You are proof that grace still moves, that hope still whispers, that God still finishes what he starts. So do not be surprised when people you thought forgot you suddenly return. Do not be alarmed when opportunities reappear, this time aligned with who you've become. You are not circling back to the past. You are collecting what belongs to your future. And the reason it all fits now is because you've been made ready. Everything that once confused you now begins to make sense, not because circumstances changed, but because you did. You grew, you evolved, you became, and from that becoming, everything else now flows. Your words carry weight. Your presence shifts rooms, not because of effort, but because of essence. Is the power of a divine comeback. It doesn't announce itself, it embodies itself. It doesn't demand attention, it commands respect simply by existing. Because what has been forged in the fire cannot be faked. What has been seasoned by silence cannot be shaken by noise. You have not missed your moment. You have not fallen too far. You have not been left behind. Everything has been moving according to a higher wisdom. And now that wisdom is bearing fruit quietly, powerfully, unstoppably. So take a breath. Let yourself feel it, not the rush of arrival, but the peace of alignment. You're not striving anymore. You're flowing. You're not chasing anymore. You're drawing it in because you've become the kind of person who no longer begs for what they are. You simply allow it to come, and it will, in waves, in confirmations, in the steady unfolding of everything that was once promised, not because you forced it, but because you were faithful. This is